For this place, we'll be traveling back in time over 10,000 years to central Anatolia, or modern-day Turkey, and the prehistoric site of Gobekli Tepe. Although excavation at this large tell site only began in the mid-1990s, the site has already captured the imagination of the public. Gobekli Tepe has been described as the world's oldest temple, the Garden of Eden, and even piles of ancient rubbish. To put these comments, and the wonder of the site itself, into a wider perspective, the monumental circular structures at Gobekli Tepe were created over 6,000 years before the construction of the Great Pyramid, 6,000 years before the erection of the first stones at Stonehenge. But why did local peoples, relying only on basic stone or wooden tools, construct such a significant site even before the spread of pottery, even before the adoption of farming? And what is the site for? The site's name, Gobekli Tepe, comes from the Turkish for hill with a belly, or fat hill. Local farmers used this hill, covered with stones, for years. Stories say the archaeological potential of the site was first revealed by a farmer who found a large sculpture while working the fields and took it into the local museum. The site was first visited by archaeologists in the 1960s, during a field survey undertaken by the University of Chicago and the University of Istanbul. The surveyors noticed the tops of limestone slabs sticking out of the mound, mistaking them for grave markers, and decided the site must be a Byzantine cemetery. The site wasn't revisited by archaeologists until 1994, when the German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt came across an article describing this so-called cemetery. Schmidt noticed a large number of prehistoric flint tools across the surface of the tell, and realized the site actually belonged to a much earlier period. Excavations at the site, under the German Archaeological Institute, began the following summer. Since the beginning of fieldwork, excavation and geophysical survey have revealed a central site area dominated by a series of large circular structures from 10 to 30 meters in diameter. Embedded in the walls surrounding these structures, and also often in the middle of the room itself, are a series of T-shaped pillars in limestone quarried from the nearby cliffs. These T-shaped pillars, with heights ranging from 4 to 7 meters, and each weighing many tons, are carved in low relief with a variety of motifs. Some pillars show anthropomorphic characteristics. That is, they are carved with arms, hands, belts, and maybe even heads to give them a human appearance. Other pillars are covered with wild and dangerous animals. Leopards and wild cats are common, as are vulture-like birds, snakes, wild boar, and scorpions. Despite the extensive work that must have been involved in the construction of these circular structures, especially given the basic tools available to the builders, all circular enclosures were systematically abandoned and buried around 8200 BCE. This deliberate burial coincides roughly with the beginning of farming in the region. Although other parts of the site remained in use, it looks as if these earliest monumental structures were never reopened. Given the spectacular archaeology at Gobekli Tepe, it's not surprising that many theories have focused on a mysterious explanation for the site's construction. The main excavation team, led by Schmidt, interpret the site as a hunter-gatherer ritual center, or the world's first temple. There have been few remains relating to occupation recovered by archaeologists in any of the earliest layers of the site. No hearths, no domestic remains, and little pottery. The monumental T-shaped pillars, although clearly requiring much work to quarry and install, also seem to suggest an open courtyard not very appropriate for houses. Representations of animals in each circular enclosure seem to focus more heavily on a single type of animal. The excavators thus think each structure can be associated with a different hunter-gatherer group, and these groups would travel from great distances across the landscape to meet in the temple at Gobekli Tepe for seasonal feasts or ritual events. More ambitious observers have gone so far as to connect the site with the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, even though there is no direct archaeological evidence to support this claim. This idea relies on environmental evidence, which suggests the region in prehistory was more fertile than it is today. Those supporting a biblical interpretation also look at the location of the site. surrounded by mountains, and close to the rivers Tigris and Euphrates, similar to the description of Eden's location contained in the book of Genesis. The Garden of Eden theory suggests a change in lifestyle and environment from hunting to farming is represented in the allegorical tale of the garden. Gobekli Tepe, as a monumental site at the heart of this changed landscape, perhaps represents a temple at the heart of the Garden of Eden. More recently, a third mundane possibility has been presented. Looking at the remains used to fill in the circular enclosures around 8200 BCE, much of the backfill material seems to be of a domestic nature. Some archaeologists have suggested that this is proof the site was residential, even in the earliest levels. Although there has been no obvious residential material located inside the temple enclosures, there is residential evidence from the surrounding area. Since much of this area has yet to be excavated, it's possible the stratigraphy and chronology of the later residential period, from approximately 7500 to 6000 BCE, is incorrect, and in fact, early people were always living alongside the larger circular enclosures. This regular interaction between ritual and residence, between daily and religious life, is much more like what we have come to expect in later periods in Anatolian prehistory and other places across the world. The first temple, the Garden of Eden, or just a surprisingly monumental house. All we can safely say at present is that we don't yet fully understand the reasons behind the construction of the complex at Gobekli Tepe. However, we are lucky that so much of the site remains intact, and with ongoing and future research, we are sure to learn more about this ancient and monumental wonder. You can debate the three possible interpretations of the site at Gobekli Tepe in the discussion forums. Or, if you're interested in learning more about the site, check out some of these other online resources about this fascinating archaeological place.